mentioned how much I love Vietnam? This region rocks. It's so good. Hey, name's Sebastian. This is Vision Denial on the road to MSI, where I watch all 12 regions playoff series. All the 12 regions participating in MSI. Yes, including that one and this one. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos that yes, I will cover the third place match, but given for the significance of relevance and time, I'm recording this at midnight, meaning there's less than 9 hours before MSI happens and I got one more playoff series to do. I will watch it later, maybe as a bonus video, because I really want to watch it. These playoff series are so good. That being said, let's get to it. And congratulations to the 11th team to have qualified for MSI. GAM, i.e. Gigabyte Marines Esports. Congratulations, you spicy motherfuckers. Oh man, this is so exciting. Now, I'm going to go through the things that I like and don't like, and maybe have a hot take for all of you. For all of you interested. Because honestly, if you guys have the time between watching MSI games, if you are watching MSI games, who's watching this video and not watching MSI games? Who knows, we'll see. You'll see something pretty interesting out of my takes here. So, first things first. What did I like? Quite a lot, actually. I enjoyed the team fights. GAM has a large amount of target selections that is really good and a high amount of skill variance to them, while Saigon Buffalos look like the more methodical team. They put a lot of thought process into how they approach their game, how they approach their win conditions, how their opponents approach the win conditions. It really felt more like the bronze team versus the brains team, but not in a way where like you can clearly tell they're missing an aspect about how to set up wave manipulations. Nope, fairly good at that. Or this team being like, oh, they're not as high skill variance as their opponents. Nope, got that in spades. It's just that there's clearly a focus of one over the other for each of these teams, and that they use what they don't focus on as a supplement to what they want to execute. Gigabyte Marines, for this example, or GAM, their rebranding was weird. So GAM, for this instance, oftentimes pick team fighting setups that revolved around map movement. So what do I mean by that? So most of the time, the last game is a good example for all of these, but last game they have a Jungle Karthus. Jungle Karthus is cool. Vietnam, again, has a lot of interesting takes. They're very spicy as a region. Highly recommend. And they use the Jungle Karthus as a very much of a team fight tool, and not for one that goes into the field as much as possible, but for one that like starts it off for removing any of the extra like magic resistance and all of that with the gate and trying to set up things, but then removing himself to then set up for an ultimate right after that helps supplement the rest of the team, which means that their picks and bans usually helps or is informed by that decision when they do that. Saigon Buffalos, on the other hand, like to pick complicated compositions more often than not, and by credit, most of this region likes to play a little complicated. They're also not afraid to pick something that's simple. But for the sake of this, really, complicated just means that they're putting down the gauntlet and let's go. Now, most of this, for me, I have to put with a grain of salt. I am trying to downplay as much as I can because I have a little bias for this region. But I also have a little bias for like Korea and Japan and Turkey. Like those four regions are like soft spots for me. I like them. And my favorite team is a North American team. We'll get to there. I'm saying this mostly because Vietnam is my favorite region. Like, they're a lot of fun to watch. Rarely do I feel frustrated. And some of you may watch these games and go, wow, this looked very chaotic. And then go back and say, wait, is this the same kind of chaotic that, like, the finals for LPL, the finals for China was like? And I would preface with sometimes. because this region still just kind of likes to fight for the sake of fighting. But the fact of the matter is that their games end very quickly, right? So there is a lot of thought process that comes to it. And this is for like the surface level explanation, right? You can tell when a region or when a couple of teams fight for the sake of fighting, or they're fighting a lot because it helps progress what they need to do to be able to close out the game. And you can tell that by the clock. If it looks like the gold is fairly even throughout the game, but the clock is only pre-30 minutes and one team finishes the game really quickly from that, then they're not necessarily fighting for the sake of fighting. If the clock is at like 40 plus minutes, then it's just fighting for the sake of fighting. And unfortunately, a lot of regions fall under this trap, or a lot of teams at least fall under this trap. And like, it happens even to the best of teams. Like in China, it happens a lot still. In Korea, less so, but like it still happens quite a bit. North America is a huge victim of this issue. Same thing with Australia. Brazil also does this a lot. Turkey less so often, but Turkey also has an issue of just the approach for their team fights more than anything else, in the way that they close out games. So this is different from the chaotic fighting. I would say Russia, but like Russia tends to be pretty good about like scaling back random fights. They're usually calculated enough. So like you can see there's a wide gamut even with a variety of the different teams across the board. So here you'll find moments like, I think game 2 is the biggest one where like you can tell that there's a lot of fights for the sake of fighting, because Saigon Buffalo looked like they were lost for it. They had moments where they were able to close out the game and they fumbled on it. And I think if it wasn't for that game, their mentality probably would have transferred for the game 3 and 4, like no problem. Heck, I think even Saigon Buffalo was on form in the middle of game 2 to have a 3-game sweep. Either one of these teams going, I would have been okay with. But I like the way that the Marines approach the game, even when behind. They're always trying to, instead of like answering purely for the sake of answering, or trying to contest anywhere that that their enemy is trying to like play for, they're always making their decisions saying, hey, how does this progress for us to win? And if it's for fighting, then good. They'll fight, they'll win. They have great target selection during their fights. If you have the chance to look at one of their fights, like even just a small breakdown of it, then it's kind of incredible how well they manage to space themselves out. But like this entire region's great for team fighting, so it's a galore. They're essentially like, if you like the LPL, you'll like Vietnam. It's like a junior of this. So from that, what's the controversial take, you'd say? Well, this wasn't so much of a matter of where in the top 6 I would put them. Or it wasn't controversial as in like, would they be in the top 6? I think that the tier 1 and tier 2 teams solidly place tier 1 in the top 3, tier 2 4 to 6. It's more like when it gets from like 7 to 12 that it's a little muddied. It's not as clear cut as tier 3 and tier 4, as presented by Infinity being in the lowest place at the moment. What will be surprising for some of you, and I'm just gonna do it, I'm like, I put them in 4th. And some of you will be like, but what about Perks? Cloud9 looks like they're on a run, and I go, Cloud9 played 2 teams, so did Gigabyte Marines, and yet I still somehow have more confidence in the fact that Gigabyte Marines is able to close out games faster, seems to have a more cohesive team fighting ability, and doesn't play out mistakes or get goaded as easily. I can see Gigabyte Marines and Cloud9 playing against each other and them getting absolutely like sideswiped in unexpected ways. So I literally had to it took me a while to think about it. My brain was like, the initial bias was, well, it's a North American team, right? It's a legacy team. But then I remembered, so is Paris Saint-Germain. They're from a legacy region too. But I don't think that Paris Saint-Germain will be able to beat the Marines. So why would I think the same kind of thought process for Cloud9? You have to remember that legacy and like history from a region doesn't matter, considering how the Marines have historically eliminated very high-ticketed North American teams. Easily. Not a problem. I wouldn't even bat an eye from it. And this is even accounting for my favoritism here. I was this close to putting them in like 5th. This close. Yeah. I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments down below. Next up is the most requested series so far. The finals for Brazil. Pain Gaming versus Vorax. And I'm actually quite excited for this. We're at the tail end of it. It's not a 5-game series. Thank goodness. I don't like 5-game series. But we'll get to see who the 12th qualifier is. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.